his case stands with his freedom. He got released this year, which we were all very happy about. He was released in the month of March after we finished the film 5 years. After we finished the film, the defense team was like reconfigured, and there was a law firm in New York which joined the team pro bono, and it was a very big law firm, and they were able to put more resources. So if the defense team was already very strong, it became stronger, and they were able to file a new habeas petition for Cesar at the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. And this decision ultimately led for him to become a free man. He was released, not with any kind of compensation or anything. Basically, like the legal system find a way to get rid of the problem, you know. Cesar's case was very complex in the sense that it is so absurd, and you know, there are so many absurd decisions that have been made that I think that for the court this was a problematic case, and they found a way to just let him go without having to compensate him for anything. So he was released in the month of May, and then he was deported to Mexico without the possibility to return to the United States. And you know, Cesar, after I finished this film, Cesar and I remained friends. He used to write me once or twice a month a letter, and I would always respond. And after, you know, even during the production of the film, but after the film was completed, we became very close friends. So you got your friend coming out of prison. It's a special, you know, it's not like what you would think of a regular prison. You know, Cesar was not in a regular prison. He was in a cage without contact with other human beings for, I don't know how many years, 40 in total. And basically you have someone who's getting released to a country that he hasn't been there in many years. And there was no other, in the middle of a pandemic. So we, like, the lawyers had already, you know, some plan for him, because initially he said, I wanted to go to Juarez. And this wasn't possible because, well, they had found already a place, like a shelter, because one of the things about Mexico is that we don't have any support for people coming out of prison. If your family doesn't support you, basically you're alone, and you know, your probabilities are you end up in the streets or you go back to prison. And we didn't want this to happen to Cesar. So, you know, initially there was this option of him going to Juarez to an immigrant shelter, which they were very nice to accept him, and they would give him sort of like a special care, you know, considering that he had been isolated for so many years. But then when the pandemic came, they said, well, you know, we will accept him, but he has to spend a quarantine somewhere. And there was no place for him to spend the quarantine. So at the end, it was my family who said, okay, he can spend the quarantine here. So he came initially to Mexico City, and this was supposed to be for 15 days while he was spending the quarantine. And then I was going to go and, you know, travel to him to Juarez and, you know, help him to get settled over there. But then the shelter told us, like, you know, we are initially what we had negotiated with them is like, Cesar is a free man. He's going to be able to get in and out of the shelter, you know, anytime he wants. But then when the pandemic came, it was like, we are following a very, very strict quarantine, and people who get in, they're not allowed to get out because we cannot afford, you know, a spread of the virus among the other immigrants, and you know, this, which is understandable. But what we thought was that it wasn't fair for Cesar, and he didn't want it also to go from one institution into another institution and not be able to go anywhere. And it's so at the end, he just stayed here with my family in Mexico City, and he's doing very well. I think it was the best for him in the sense that Mexico City is a crazy city, very busy, very too much people. So he came to a Mexico City that, at least during the pandemic, is a little quieter, and that has helped him. And it was like, for example, right when he came, we had to teach him everything, like how things work, how to turn on the TV, or how to, use the microwave. The first time he used the microwave, because he has a microwave in the place where he's staying, he put something with a metal inside and it exploded. So there were all these things. We used the phone. That's a sad story. Sergio and I became also good friends, and back in 2018, he was calling me all the time, and then he stopped calling for a couple of months. So the next time I went to Ciudad Juarez that year, I filed a report for a missing person, and unfortunately, the police just found out that Sergio passed away in about January of 2018. It was quite sad because after the production of the film, for some time, he was able to find a place to live and to leave the streets. But then, for homeless people, it is very difficult to sustain outside of the streets, because there are many facts that drag you back to the streets. So he was back in the streets, and he started to have health problems, and at the end he passed away. He passed away in the streets, and in poverty, without any help from any organization of the Mexican state or the Mexican society to help him, in complete loneliness. Well, as a filmmaker, you have to be, initially, at least that's what you are taught in school, to try to put distance between you and your subject, and try to, keep the most objective point of view, and not to get very involved, and try to be like a journalist, and that's very easy to say but very hard to do. So documentary is probably one of the arts or form of communications in which you are able to discover like the real story of people, and sometimes you get connected to those stories, and that doesn't mean you are losing objectivity. You can still be objective, and you can still be telling the truth, but you sometimes you get connected with the people, and this is what happened. And Sergio and Cesar, both of them were human beings that had stories you can be connected, and they in the case of Sergio they were, in the case of Cesar they are great human beings, good persons. Since Cesar got released out of prison, I've had the chance to know him even more, and I'm convinced he's a youth person, I was interested in making a film about a larger case, which is called the Avena case, and it's a litigation between Mexico and the US in the International Court of Justice, where Mexico argues that in the case of 50 Mexican citizens, the US sentenced them to death and they didn't notify the consulate to provide them help while the process were going on. And that was my master's thesis when I was in school. And I said, I'm going to make a film about this. And then, you start to see that there are so many cases and it's very difficult to, be able to tell, personal stories when you have so many cases and be able to go deep into that. So I decided to choose one, and I decided to write to Cesar if he would be interested in me making a film and to go and visit him in the prison. So the first time I went there, it was kind of a special time because he had for many years decided that he didn't want to see any kind of media people. And I went to Houston, well, to Polunsky, which is north of Houston, to visit him. And I couldn't get into the prison because I didn't do the paperwork correctly. So I said, this is the end of the film because, he gives you the opportunity to see him. You're the first person in many years he accepts to see. And the first you think you do, you make a mistake. And then I received a letter from him and he said, solve the things you have to solve with the prison, do the paperwork again, and I'll be waiting for you. And I went and see him. And since that was back in 2009 or 2010, I believe. And we became, from there, every month he would be sending me a letter just to say hello and so on. And now he's with my family. Yes, and this is something I have to thank the festival. I have to say that the Black Movie is a very special festival, and they are very warm to the guests that go to the festival. We had the opportunity to be there in 2015, and I said, well, the Black Movie is a festival that might understand this. So I wrote to Kate and Maria, and I told them, Cesar has just been released, and we are starting this GoFundMe effort to try to get some funds and see if we can help him not only to find justice, but to be able to make it easier for him to have an independent life and to find a place in the context we are right now, where it's hard to get a job. Mexico is doing really bad in terms of the COVID pandemic, and all over, we don't have any support for people coming out of prison, even when they come out of Mexican prisons, much less when there are people who come from prisons in another country, and we don't have basically no support for people who's deported from the US to Mexico. So we decided to create this GoFundMe and try to organize. This is our first experiment, to put it this way, and our idea is to try to make screenings of the film and then invite people if they want to help Cesar. Well, they could, if they're interested in helping Cesar with money, they could go to GoFundMe and look for Cesar Fierro, free after 40 years on death row. And then you will see the campaign, which is organized by their lawyers. That's one way to get to the GoFundMe, which is the most direct. And if you have trouble doing that, you can go to the film's website, which is www.theyearsofierro.com. and then click on Take Action, and that will take you to the site where you can contribute with anything. No, just thanks to the festival. I feel really honored to be able to show my film for a second time in a festival. This is never common. I don't know how many times you have done this, but thank you. That's it.